Welcome to this episode of the Customer Centric Retailing Podcast. This is Anil Patel, founder and CEO of Hotwise Commerce. In this podcast, we discuss e-commerce, omnichannel technology, pre-order management, brick and mortar operations, retail culture, innovation, and how all these elements come together to create customer-centric retailing. Join us to hear the brightest minds in the retail industry share their experiences and thoughts on the most relevant topics today. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Customer Centric Retailing Podcast. In this episode, we have Nick Nedev. He is the product manager for the digital in BJ's Wholesale. You know what? I don't want to take on and talk about him. I would rather have Nick tell us about his journey in the retail and all the fun stuff he's doing. Hey, Nick, please tell us about it.
Absolutely. Hi, Neil. So my journey in retail started with JCPenney years ago as a salesperson. Later, I got a job with Boscov's department stores, where I became a department manager for several years and managed departments within the soft lines categories. And after Boscov's, I landed a job with Rule 21, where initially I was part of the merchandise planning organization. So I was overseeing the merchandise financial plans as well as the inventory strategy in certain departments. And several years later, I joined the supply chain division of the company, dealing with online direct to consumer orders as well as inventory flow. More on the operational side of things, but combined with inventory management as well, and making sure that we are showing accurate inventory to our customers and that we're fulfilling the orders we're taking through our website. And about 6, 7 months ago, I got the opportunity to actually engage with BJ's Wholesale, where I currently am a digital product manager with heavy focus on inventory and inventory accuracy, similar to what I've done in the past. And I am extremely excited to be part of BJ's Wholesale.
Awesome. Really, I'm really impressed. I'm really impressed because, many of the people working in the implementation of all these new world customer-centric systems for digital transformation, they come from the digital world, they are from the IT department or they are from the technology. What I see is that you started from the sales floor, so you know exactly what's happening, how things are getting sold, what's the interaction happening in these stores, and the really at the B2C level, what the customer really is looking for. So that's fantastic. But then not only that, but all your experience in supply chain and then getting into the inventory problems, I would say the challenges, that is even interesting. So I think you as a product manager for digital transformation at BJ's, I think that's best thing that can happen actually. And I feel good for BJ's that they have a person like you to take care of their whole omnichannel or customer-centric retailing strategies. Wow, I'm excited.
Thank you, thank you. I do take pride in understanding how merchandise not only ends up in the hands of our customers, but also how it actually gets here and how it flows through the company pipeline to be delivered to a customer that we call members.
Yes, because today when we're talking about supply chain, it's getting complicated every day because of, and definitely using a lot of technology, globalization, inventory flowing here and there, and then all these uncertainties that are being brought in by COVID, and then now we have war and all that. So definitely optimizing supply chain has a lot of big challenges, and I'm sure with BJ's Wholesale, it's even more challenging because you have a big assortment and then predictability has to be there. So there's a lot. I'm sure there's a lot of systems being used there. Um, well, we've been talking earlier that most of the retailers definitely implement technology when it comes to providing experience to their customers, like mobile app, website, and all these things. But then when customer interacts with those mobile apps or website, it is just starting. Real magic happens behind the scene when we go fulfill those orders, and that's where all the inventory challenges and uh, optimizing our workflows internally comes in. Please tell us about your experiences and what do you think are the real world challenges when it comes to managing all those inventory flows, but not only that, but processing orders. When the online orders are coming in and processing those orders and making best use of the inventory.
Mhm. So specifically from inventory perspective, I think of the inventory opportunities in three buckets. I think about inventory accuracy, I think about inventory visibility, and I think about inventory explainability. Accuracy pertains to either showing inventory that is not in stock or having something in stock, but for whatever reason, canceling the order. Visibility has to do with not exposing all the inventory records that are ready to work for you, but for whatever reason, they're not live and we can't sell them. And explainability simply has to do with how exactly we got to that inventory value that we're using to do business with and we're showing to our customers. As you know, we start with the inventory on hand, some call that supply. Then we have the demand coming through website or other selling channels. We have very often safety stock and other eligibility factors that go into subtracting from your starting point, which is the supply, and arriving at the what we call available to promise inventory. And explainability is the ability to see what happens and why the number that you see is the number that you see. So those are the three big challenges in my mind when it comes to inventory that every retailer needs to tackle successfully in order to maximize the omnichannel business. And when it comes to orders, in addition to that, you also have making sure that service SLAs are met.
Cool. You know what? You talked about three buckets, and I really like the last one more than other because I understand the visibility and availability, all those. Like explainability, help us understand. Like, how are you? Like, I see all these different settings we do in our inventory management systems, like safety stocks and cycle counts and all those things, activities to ensure that the numbers we are saying, like how much we have in stock, are valid. Tell us more about like how you use explainability. Like what are the different factors you are talking about here, and how the supply chain experts or the omnichannel, I would say, business owners use these explainability factor to manage their business.
It's the explainability comes into play uh, mainly internally to the retailers, right? You definitely don't show that to the customer. For the customer, all we need to consider and maybe even show them is the available to promise. But explainability plays a role internally when you have several teams working, making adjustments to or owning a piece of this inventory flow. And explainability gives them that ability to understand all the inputs that go into producing the ATP and ultimately increases the credibility of your product. If you can show how exactly you arrived. So let's say you started with a quantity of 100 of supply and you have safety stock of five. You have pending demand of five. You have one reservation of one. You have maybe a bucket of unavailable inventory for certain nodes that have big declines. I'm sorry, you have a supply of 100, but you're showing ATP of 50. And being able to clearly explain for your internal stakeholders as a product manager, all these business units are my stakeholders internally, being able to explain that, and actually they self-service. If explainability is implemented well, they can go and self-service and understand the flow of inventory, and from there, basically gain credibility in my inventory product, inventory system that we're using for sourcing through for inventory. So that's the main benefit of explainability, and it's key to build that trust in the system that we're working with.
Ah, cool. So, can you? I want to just get deeper because this is something very interesting. I experienced myself how explainability became critical even for us as a technology provider. For us to retain a customer or retailer to use our omnichannel order management system, it is important that we should be able to explain exactly what you said, like an explainability with the inventory, because it often happens that they see there's like 50 in the warehouse, but online is showing out of stock. Why? No. So those are the questions, and like you said, if our, our platform can clearly make it easy for the users to dig deeper and get into the detailed number. How did we arrive at the ATP that we have? Uh, that helps in gaining the confidence of the business users. Now, help me understand, like, what are those roles? What are those people, different roles in retailer side of it, who actually really want to see this or benefit from the explainability factor? Like, is it the merchandiser, or who all are those people who actually have questions that explainability helps to answer?
It will really depend on the size of the retailer. If it's a smaller scale retailer, it may be one or two functions that are interested in this. In large retailers, there may be more, but ultimately it boils down to um, the operations group that makes sure that things are flowing correctly. They definitely need to know and understand how things are flowing, and why the numbers are not the numbers that they're seeing. And you also usually have the digital merchandising team as well, because they're interested in, hey, why isn't my number one seller not on the site right now? I know I have inventory in the warehouse. I know I have inventory in the stores. Why isn't it live? What's happening to it? And being able to easily troubleshoot. So those are the two key business units that will be interested in seeing that. In addition to others as well, because you brought up an interesting bit. If you think of this inventory system, this source of truth as a platform, as something that retailers buy from third parties. Explainability there goes a long way, to your point, to 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 get that buy-in, to for the retailer to know that that was money well spent, that it makes sense, that it's not just, the approach is not just trust me, it works, and this is the best, and this is what it should be showing, but you're also saying this is what should be showing, and here's why.
I'm so excited about that you made it a real important one bucket, particularly when it comes to inventory management. That's really important. In fact, at times when we have like a season, like for example, it's a you know Black Friday, Cyber Monday time of situation, and then there are like some high demand products, uh, and order getting placed online, and then inventory is showing up, but orders are getting rejected. And now those situations come in when the store has the inventory. The order gets routed to the store for fulfillment, but then the store is rejecting those orders. And that's again one of the situation where the explainability helps, because then you can go look deeper that why did store reject the order. So those are the other situations. In a simple world where you have like a one warehouse or two warehouses, fulfilling may not be as important. But when you have like a many different warehouses, many different stores coming into play, then there are a lot of issues that could come up. In fact, I have seen in my experience that even the store managers and store associates, they get nervous about sharing their inventory with the online orders, and sometimes there is like a conflict of interest there as well, and could cause rejection of the orders. And that's in those situations again, inventory explainability helps to dig deeper into the where the problem is in my operation, so we can go and address the problem in the right way. Do you have any experiences in that lines, and do you have any advice for our audience or in this space?
Um, in terms of advice, I would say using explainability, you can definitely find those operational opportunities to execute better. And when it comes to um, store fulfillment, that's always it's very critical because when you have your own warehouse, your own fulfillment center, or a network of fulfillment centers fulfilling just your orders, you don't have walk-in customers competing for the same merchandise. With stores, you have that. And there's not much you can do if the order is taken today, drops to the store, let's say an hour later, and the store picks it another hour later. So it's 2 hours after the demand was generated. But in the meantime, a walk-in customer came and picked up that merchandise from the rack or the shelf. Not much that you can do there other than rely on safety stock to possibly mitigate those occurrences of short hits. And that's what I've done in the past, where if if I have a desirable product, we'd set a higher safety stock because chances are they will be walking customers also buying some of the units that we have on hand.
Definitely, this also happens more of, like you said, the demand is generated, but then by the time we go fulfill the orders, like 2 hours passed in, and a lot could change at the store level, where more than one parties are competing for that inventory. That is like, one of those big challenges of enterprise retailing, where we have different systems managing the local operations. Warehouse has a WMS, but then stores has a point of sale system. Then there is an online sale. Then there is a mobile app, and there could be B2B sales happening. So all these multiple systems, there are like, challenges that we have to work with. For example, like integration challenges and all that. So uh, I'm sure with in your experience, you work with such a big client. Like, do you tell us about like what is the strategy? How do you approach such situations where all these multiple systems in the enterprise are working in their own silos, but then they have to talk to each other, and that's where those whole visibility and availability comes in. So tell us more about how you handle those complexities.
Um, in my experience, those complexities are handled through creating a single source of truth for inventory. And it's not the on-hand inventory, it's the available to promise inventory. And that's the place where all these systems that keep track of inventory, whether it's the warehouse management system, whether it's sales through the POS, whether it's the enterprise resource accumulates all that and books the sales. Any system that keeps records or any system that ensures flow of orders, like obviously the order management system, all those should feed this source of truth with inventory events, and at the same time source ATP inventory from the same tool for their own needs. That tool should be ideally almost real or near real time or near real time as possible in order for it to show the most current available to promise inventory. And it's an important note to make that that inventory tool is not the same as the ERP system that houses the on-hand inventory for the company, for at least several reasons. One, ERPs are traditionally slower, in my experience, to update with inventory, and not all of them account for demand. Whereas ATP source of inventory will account for that demand and decrement the available inventory for those units that are already committed to an order. Similar logic is in place for reservations if retailers choose to use those, um, where the customer is on his or her way to checking out and submitting the order, but they're not there yet. Or maybe they just did, but the order hasn't been handed to the OMS. Some systems use the concept of reservations that happens before the demand is really seen by OMS. Reservations are something that is usually accounted for in these ATP systems, but not in the ERP system. So that ATP system is the best way to for retailers to have the latest and greatest picture of inventory that is there for you to go and generate sales.
Yeah, this is interesting. Like you said, ERPs are not the right system for managing available to promise, just because they are not always aware of all the demand we have. And then there could be other settings. In fact, in my experience, I've seen that a lot of retailers who are just starting their journey, uh, they think they come with this mindset that their ERP is capable of doing all these things. And because of that, they don't need OMS. They can straight away start using their e-com against kind of integrated with their ERP for fulfilling or managing their inventory and fulfilling online orders and omnichannel journeys. But then, that's not true. Like you said, because ERPs are not particularly designed for solving this problem. And that's where OMS comes into place. And with the cloud technologies becoming more and more available, um, OMS is a right technology to bring in all the demand and the supply side of the information and compute the available to promise, and then add that explainability part of it, because you could set rules in your ERP about safety stocks and all that, but generally they don't flow into the ATP system, and then that information doesn't properly flow into the e-com or those on digital channels for taking the orders, and that's where the challenge is. Uh, in fact, the other term that you talked about, I want to touch on that again, is the real-time availability of the inventory. The term real time sometimes can be confusing. Like, what does it even mean, real time? Does it mean like instantaneous, or is it like 30 minutes? So, what is the real time in a enterprise world? What do you think is acceptable real time, and what is the inventory consistency acceptable levels? Uh, I would say there would be a term that we can talk about is eventual consistency. So tell us about KPIs, like what, as a digital product manager for such a big company, what do you think are the expectations from a system when it comes to providing real time inventory information and bringing in that whole consistency, or like a real time consistency or eventual consistency?
Yeah. In my experience, everyone in the industry is very careful when referring to real time, and the wider use term is near real time because it buys you that asterisk of yes, we are reflecting the changes that just occurred, but it took us, let's say, 2 minutes or 1 minute or 15 minutes. So it varies in retailers, but maybe we can define real time as very hard to achieve and near real time as inventory updates that take no longer than 30 minutes at the most, especially if you have integrations with drop shippers that they update their inventory records on a certain cadence that differs from your own. But in terms of some of the inventory metrics that are critical to be tracked, um, from 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 systems perspective, availability of the system, high availability is critical. Usually, there's this term of five nines, 99.999% availability that everyone strives for. But on more operational side of things, important key metrics are fill rate, cancellation rate, even substitution rate, which is if a retailer has the opportunity to offer substitutions to its customers, you would want to measure how often that happens. And in addition to those, it's important to look at what we call found rate, and it has to do with subtracting the substitution rate from the fill rate because it will tell you exactly what your inventory accuracy was. If you just look at fill rate, depending on how you calculate it, if substitutions are baked in that calculation, then you are actually overstating how good your inventory looks, right? How accurate the inventory is. But with the found rate, you actually know very well that, let's say, 3% of the time or 2% of the times or whatever the number is, it varies by retailer. The customer and all systems thought they held hands that inventory was there, but by the time the order was dropped for fulfillment, the inventory was not available, or inventory was not available during the routing, which is even worse. So found rate will tell you that better than even fill rate. And in addition to those, there are some of the more the merchandising side of things like weeks supply, sell-through, inventory turn, then the inventory control metric of shrink, which you want to measure, shrink percent, what percent of your inventory is not there during physical inventory and getting that inventory physically, as well as availability percent, product that is percent of the products that are live versus the products that are expected to be live. So let's say for simplicity, you know that you do business with 100 products and 99 of them are currently live. Your availability rate is 99%.
Yeah, definitely. No, this is actually pretty deep, I would say. The ideas that you explained about like how to make sure that we are tracking the right KPIs for managing the inventory, and if we do that right, then definitely the problem of we control the problem of cost of inventory and very quickly identify our slow moving products, especially in a big company. There could be a situation that certain product moves faster in certain region, but in other region it could be slow selling product. So dealing with slow moving inventory is the other problem, because at the end, if we don't take a right step at the right time, we may end up deep discounting towards the end of the season and things like that. So tell us about like your advice on how to work with these slow moving inventory, how to identify them, and the right kind of actions we could be taking to make the best outcome or business outcome out of those slow moving inventory items.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no one really likes accumulated inventory because it usually translates into diminished profit there. But if markdowns are not an option, whether it's discounting the product, trying to sell it in pairs or three, four, certain price, whatever it may be, if markdowns are not on the table, another way to work through that inventory glut is through increasing marketing spend, which is also not ideal, reduces the profit, but at least helps you get rid of some of this clutter. And basically, what you would do is you would give your marketing department more spending dollars to go and compete for bid on keywords out there in the space, or um, whichever other marketing channel is being used, whether it's email, whatever it may be, to hopefully drum up additional traffic. The challenge with that approach is that usually when you cast a wide net for traffic, what you really get is less quality traffic. So yes, you may be bringing more customers to your website, but your conversion may suffer because now, in addition to the slam dunk customers, you're also bringing ones that are just not going to care, to look at more than one page of that. So your conversion may suffer as a result. But that's a way that could be deployed. Another thing that I've seen done is the concept of packing and holding merchandise. It is not ideal because it ties up cash. Usually, as a retailer, your goal is to sell the goods you've acquired from suppliers, ideally even before you have to pay for them, before you have to pay your suppliers. That's the perfect case scenario, cash generating, profit generating operation. But when you pack and hold, you just tie up that inventory and you just let it sit on in storage for 6 months, sometimes even longer, just sitting there doing nothing. You've invested dollars in that, and it's just not doing anything for you sitting there. But at least it's preventing you from burning uh, through profitable sales, and hopefully the following season, the goods that you have kind of sidelined temporarily are still desirable by customers, and that's the ideal case scenario. So this approach definitely doesn't work with more of like I would say the apparel side of things, because usually their trends change year over year, so it's riskier to do this, and that's probably why not too many retailers have adopted this approach.
Yeah, that's important. Like that definitely, the other strategy that we have seen our customers put in is like a pre-order strategy where they try to watch their purchase orders, open orders to their suppliers, and start selling those inventory even before it has arrived in stock. Do you have any experience using pre-orders and trying to get it to work with your online and the other channels?
I've personally seen two schools of thought on pre-orders. One being pre-orders simply shift the sales up by a week or two or three, and you still sell the same amount just sooner. Whether that's good or bad depends on the circumstances. And then there's the other approach saying, if I'm able to offer pre-sale and sell my stuff, like start taking orders for it, I'm extending the life of my product by 3 weeks, which in some cases may be a lot. So ultimately, I think each retailer needs to decide whether or not pre-orders make sense for them. It usually works best with items that are in high demand and limited supply. I mean, that's the perfect case scenario. But in general, for the majority of the products out there, the retailers just need to make a decision for themselves whether or not it makes sense. Because sometimes, you know, and a lot of times, it's not just looking at your merchandise and your situation in a vacuum. You have to see where your competitors are, because as you know, we live in a world where if you're not offering something, but the customer will not just come back to you 2 3 weeks later to check. What they will do is they'll open another tab in their browser and they'll go and visit your competitor, and if they offer a pre-sale for that product that you currently don't have, they win and you don't.
Yeah, makes sense. So, like, definitely, in today's world, when we have all these digital channels available, retailers want to be available for customers and be able to sell right kind of whatever customer wants. Sometimes it is, most of the time, it is in stock, so you want to get it sold and fulfilled in time. But in some cases, may not be in stock, and pre-orders or back orders, if done properly, could help. extend the life of the sales period, or get more money out of whatever you have invested in the inventory. And to your point, getting money even before we are up for paying to the supplier. So that could be the best scenario. Nick, we had really a lot of coverage today, a lot of different topics, definitely a lot of, I would say, technical topics, different KPIs we talked about. I'm really excited. I'm sure our listeners will benefit a lot from all the insights you have shared based on your real life experience.
Just want to say thank you for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate this opportunity to chat. Inventory is my passion that and I care greatly about, and I'm happy to talk about it at any time.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much. And I'm sure it's a complicated topic. 20 years since people have been talking about all these things, omnichannel and all these stuff. And even today, it's a challenge. So we need your expertise and expertise of people like you who have real life experience. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge. That's it for this episode of the Customer Centric Retailing Podcast. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast. Please rate and review and recommend to a friend or a fellow retail fanatic. This podcast is presented by Hotworks Commerce.